Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tim Moen Show. I'm your host, Tim Moen. Listen, government is trying to implement central bank digital currency right now. It wants to control our every transaction. I mean, it essentially has controlled our every transaction to some degree since the implementation of central banks, fiat currency, all the regulations and laws around legal tender. And now it wants to take it to the next step, to its almost final form, wherein it can control, cut off, do whatever it wants to your money. You'll have absolutely no control over it, no privacy. Cash will be dead. So one of the ways we can counteract this, obviously, is through things like precious metals, things like cryptocurrency. And the guy I have for you today is joining us all the way from way down under is Joshua Scigala, who's been in this crypto space for a long time. And I think he has some very interesting thoughts. He's a founder of a couple of interesting technologies. So I want to have this guy on and find out what we can do in the coming age of this central bank digital currency, rampant inflation, and erosion of our freedoms. Joshua, thanks for joining me on the Tim Moen Show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tim. It's great to be here. Big fan. And I'm calling from the grand Airbnb. So I'm not sure. Hopefully the internet will hold up. You know, Airbnbs, they just sort of throw the cheapest internet they can in there and flog it off.
Yeah, well, I mean, so far so good. Listen, you're a Bitcoin OG. I think you've been in this since what, 2010 or something like that?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to find Bitcoin very, very early. It was mainly because I'd been searching for this sort of technology,
right.
Something similar for a site I was running called SwapStyle, where people swapped clothes instead of buying and selling. Because I always loved having alternative economies. I really liked the idea of alternative economies, and it started just being horrible because no one, swapping's very inefficient. It's a terrible way of doing business, and you have a whole marketplace there, which you could utilize if you had some sort of credit or token. But how do you put a credit without going all the way full circle back to being a central bank?
Right. So how much was Bitcoin worth when in terms of fiat, when you were first looking into it?
It hadn't reached $1 yet.
Right. Wow. Okay. So you know what, your story sounds very similar to mine. I was actually I was trying to figure out how to create a barter buck, right? Just locally. Right. And so I was working out this whole scheme about how to, exchange services, but, creating just a local kind of community dollar that you could exchange for services. And my whole thing was like, how can I avoid being taxed? I was a small business owner on the side, had the side hustle, and I thought, okay, I can trade some of this for some of that or something, and then I came across Bitcoin. I think it was about it was somewhere between around $2 or $3. It was around 2011 maybe. And man, I was like blown away by it. I'm like, this is the answer to central banks. This is this is the future. And I tried to get a hold of some back then. At the time, there was only one exchange, as I recall, it was MTGOX. And I had to get a US bank account and wire money to them if I wanted to buy some. So that was a big headache. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And in the end, I tried to get some privately, just, and I even offered guys $20 a coin. I figured I'd invest $100 into Bitcoin because I heard it might be going up to $100 a coin. And it made sense to me that it would, because why wouldn't it? But man, I ran into too many roadblocks, and I just kind of gave up on it. And now it sounds like the difference between you and me is you stuck with it, and are now heavily invested and in the space and an early adopter.
Yeah, I mean, I really should have bought more instead of trying to mine and telling everyone else that they should buy. And I shouldn't have left them all on Mount Gox either. Not your keys, not your crypto. So
right, yeah, that was a hard lesson to learn, I imagine.
but you know, I don't think our stories are very different to anybody else's in the space. And you know, so many people say, "Yeah, I heard of Bitcoin, and I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't quite get it." And I could say the same with Ethereum. When Ethereum came along, I didn't get it, fully understand it at the time of the ICO, and I didn't. You know, I was just just Bitcoin. I understood Bitcoin, and I just didn't understand the scope of what they were doing there fully. But yeah, it's, you know, I think it's sort of this sort of coming of age within Bitcoin is losing money somehow. You know, you have to sort of get your fingers burnt to understand how this stuff is very slippery, and you've got to secure your coins by yourself. You've got to, you know, really learn about the technology, learn how to secure your private keys, and not hold your keys somewhere else, and not buy shit coins and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's another kind of roadblock for me. I mean, I do have a bit of Bitcoin, just Bitcoin that people have sent me, but I'm kind of scared to get too invested in it because I'm not very responsible. You know, I'm not. I don't. I will lose the key. I'm just scared. I'm gonna, you know, I'm scared I'm gonna lose it. And but what advice do you have for a guy like me? Or let's just say talk to my audience who might be just vaguely familiar with Bitcoin, not really understand, you know, just superficially that, look, this stuff seems to be the answer, but it's over my head in terms of like, how do I get it? How do I secure it? There's all these options and all these people looking for my money in the crypto space. How do I decide?
Yeah, I mean, look, the biggest trap that most people nowadays, because nowadays it's fairly easy, right? You don't need to jump through a million hoops. Like what you were saying when you first joined, it was almost impossible to get. I had to like get Second Life credits and this and that, and then trade that for something else to get fun. Like, it was nightmarish. And so nowadays you just sign up to, like, I don't know, Coinbase or something like that. It's very simple. There's so many different ways to do it very easily. The biggest trap that new people fall into is trying to get that the next Bitcoin, and buy some like crazy speculative asset because it's going up, and if it's already going up, you're probably too late.
Right.
And the other thing is like that the media, and you know, it's horrible because when you're in a bear market, the media just stops talking about crypto. They stop mentioning it. They stop. Nothing. There's just the odd, like, bad news story, which will dump the price even more.
Or someone dancing on the grave of Bitcoin. Finally, it's done.
Yeah, exactly. But once the bull market comes, it's Bitcoin every day. There's ticker symbols. There's all sorts, and that's why all these new people come in when the price is already going up like crazy. And they get wrecked at the top. So you know, if the single best advice I think is, look, if you're just new to this game, don't touch anything else but Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum. Like, these are the two blue chips in this space, and all the other ones, just leave them for a little bit. Learn, listen, read, understand the value props that these guys are trying to do. I'm not saying, you know, everyone calls many people call everything a scam. And I think it's very dangerous because the scam is a very important word. And by calling everything a scam, you basically diminish the meaning of it. And there are real scams out there, and they're getting more and more. But if someone comes new to this space and they hear that Ethereum's a scam and everything's a scam apart from Bitcoin, then they think, oh, well, you know, Ethereum's obviously not a scam. He's calling that a scam. And this weird OneCoin thing is also being a scam. So, you know, they're the same. Like, everything's just a scam. So it's really important to just, if you're new to this game, stick with Bitcoin, stick with Ethereum, and dollar cost average in. Don't put all your eggs just all in. Just buy every week some, or every month, whatever you can afford to lose, and just slowly accumulate a little bit of diversity in your portfolio. And I would say the same thing for gold and silver. Just slowly DCA some gold and silver as well. Whatever you can do is just don't save in fiat currency. That's the big enemy out there. And the boogeyman, the thing is, this divide and conquer mentality that crypto people and gold people have had is really infuriating me. For many years, the gold bugs be like, Bitcoin, no, it's this and that, and just calling it names and not truly trying to put away that sort of cognitive dissonance that they've built up. And Bitcoiners sit there going, it's the new gold, drop gold. And you're like, guys, have we forgotten the real enemy is this fractional reserve nonsense coin called the Fed coin,
right.
called the Euro or the USD or anything else? That's the thing that we have to warn everybody about, not gold and not Bitcoin. These are rare assets. Bitcoin's a rare number. Gold is a rare metal, and they work beautifully together.
Yeah, that's right. And you have been a co-founder of I think one of the first crypto to metal exchanges. You want to talk a little bit about that? What was the kind of motivating factor there?
Well, the motivating factor for building a Bitcoin physical gold exchange was that the very first exchange called Mt. Gox, MT Gox, the first Bitcoin exchange went broke, and there was just no transparency at all. And if someone had fiat on that exchange or crypto, it didn't matter, you lost it. Now, when I went about straight after the collapse of that and losing a lot of Bitcoin, and I said, right, this is the end, because that was just a string of different hacks that were happening at the time. There was all these online wallets, Insta wallets one. There was there was a whole bunch of different services that kept on stealing everyone's money. And I was just sick of it, because these people were raining on a parade so amazing that it just made my heart cry, because here we have a technology that can defeat central banking. Yet these idiots are coming along, and then the media would report like the CEO of Bitcoin has, like, because they didn't understand it at the time. So they would come out with nonsense as well. So it was time to stop that. And that was really the driving factor for building a physical gold exchange. And so what we built was a transparency protocol, and transparency worked very well with gold, because banks are only insured in America for 250K and in Europe for 100K. And we had, the Greece crisis, Cyprus crisis and stuff like that over in Europe. I was like, man, really, gold can be insured to however much you've got, because it's a physical good and it's just sitting in a vaulting facility. So you can insure it for millions. Wealthy people need to open up countless bank accounts, for 100K.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a great way of securing your money. Plus, there's gold has had scams for 5,000 years. So the gold industry knows pretty much every attack vector. And so if you can get good insurance and good auditors like BDO or KPMG or some large auditor to count the stuff in these high security top tier vaulting facilities, you've pretty much got a very solid diversification into a rare asset. And so I thought, okay, why not, instead of trading Bitcoin against fiat, let's trade it against gold sitting in a high security Swiss vaulting facility that's fully audited and fully insured. So if anything happens to us as an exchange, we run a bad business, it doesn't matter. The gold is sitting there, because many people don't understand, when you put money in a bank, it's not your money anymore. It's the bank's money. They own it. They promise to pay it back when they can, when you ask for it. Usually it works, but sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I mean, we just saw it not work in, with the SVT. What was it? SVT Bank, Silicon Valley. Bank, they went to the bank and there was no money there. It's gone. It's gone.
Gone.
Yeah, and like you say, it's only insured to a certain amount, right? So yep, exactly. And that's only going to happen worse. It's going to happen more and more and more and more and more. And if the big aha moment was when I was at a conference in Cyprus talking to an old lady. And she'd worked her entire life as like a nurse or something. And and she said, because I asked her about this crisis that happened. She goes, I lost everything in that. I said, what do you mean you lost everything? She goes, oh, well, I had a flat
that I'd saved up for. I bought, and that was my retirement money. And I decided to sell my flat and retire. And I put all the money in the bank. It was all there. Friday, it was there. Monday, it was all gone. All of it. She couldn't even log in. All of it was gone. And then about 2 months later, the insurance kicked in and put 100K back. But that's not enough for her to live on.
Right.
And her kids had died. So she was alone in this world. And she was just worried. She didn't know how to move forward because she has 100K to live on. And right. So this was a real big sort of aha moment as well in terms of what we're building here and why we're building it. And so,
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's what scares me. And that's what should, you know, concern my audience, right? Guys, you have all this money you've worked so hard for. They're already eroding your buying power. They're stealing from you by printing all this money. This is why you've seen all the prices continue to climb. That's government fuckery, you know, robbing you to pay the elite. And then to top it all off, we have these banks, which are essentially Ponzi schemes, fractional reserve banks. You put your money there and it's immediately loaned out plus more, it's gone. And, you know, eventually you're not going to be able to go get your money from the bank anymore. So now what do you do? So, you know, and like Joshua said, this is likely to become more and more common as the economy becomes more unstable and this giant bubble that central banks have inflated starts to collapse or pop. And so so this is why I really like what you're doing. And you know, Joshua, you know, Mt. Gox and a lot of these crypto exchanges, there was some shady stuff going on there too, right? It was kind of the Wild West.
They're just another bank. And
they're exactly, yeah.
Yeah, like, and you know, this is why I'm working now on a DeFi protocol where you can be your own bank, right. Ultimately, so you can lend yourself money. So one of the great inventions of this space, which I believe, even if I do say so myself, and I didn't invent it, but I'm taking it to the next level, is don't pay cash for things. Like don't sell your Bitcoin and buy a car. Don't even borrow money from the bank to buy a car. Just what you want to do is you want to open your own bank, right? Okay. Put your money into your own bank and then borrow money from yourself and then buy the car. Now you haven't sold your investment and you've borrowed money, so there's no capital gains tax, and right. And it's 0% interest because you borrowed from yourself. And these are the wonderful things that DeFi allows you to do. And these are the things that it sounds really crazy, and we can dive a bit deeper into it if you want.
Yeah, I'm curious to know more about this. I've heard about this be your own bank thing. I've never really looked into it. You know, explain this to me. So can I be my own fractional reserve banker, or do I actually have to have money on deposit?
No, you have to have more collateral than you borrow from yourself. Okay. So, and this is the beautiful thing. So this is why we've called it the
I guess if I were my own fractional reserve banker, I'd basically be arrested for counterfeiting, right? Something like that.
Exactly.
But they can do it. I can't.
Well, the thing is, if you're your own, what we want to do, I mean, this is why we've called it the standard.io, is the standard comes from the gold standard, right? You have governments traditionally would hold gold and then issue debt or issue credit against that. So you would then have these bits of paper, which was the currency that you could always go and redeem for gold. Now, I don't actually like the gold standard for many reasons, but one of the reasons is that you're telling government to force the price of gold at $1 per gram. So you're now price fixing, which is a very sort of commie way of doing things. You don't want government forcing the price of gold on something. It had knock-on effects. In fact, some would say it was one of the reasons for the Great Depression is that a lot of the gold miners didn't want to explore for new mines because there was no upside to gold. It was always going to be $1. Right. So it had problems. Now, let's talk about the be your own bank thing. What is it about? Well, if you had some Bitcoin and you're very long Bitcoin, you're saving it, it's a rare asset, it's a rare number. There's only going to be 21 million of them. Great. Now, you don't want to bring that to a bank like Silicon Valley Bank or Celsius or BlockFi or these sort of central authorities. What they would do is you would give them your Bitcoin and they would say, okay, we're going to hold on to that Bitcoin and we'll give you a loan against that. The problem is they then go off like cowboys and start speculating with your money. And so you don't know what they're doing. When you go back to pay off your debt, will you get that money back? Will they go broke? Well, we saw what happened. They usually just are cowboys and spend your money on
right.
on hookers and blow and whatever. So how can we flip this? Okay, why do we need to give it to BlockFi or Silicon Valley Bank? Why can't we just lock those assets in a smart contract where we hold the private key, like yourself? So you have your Bitcoin, you go to a smart contract where you own the private key, no one else can touch it. You put your Bitcoin into that and you close the smart vault. So the only person that can speculate with your funds that are locked in that is you. Now, let's say you've put 10,000 bucks in there, right? Let's say, or 1,000, whatever it is. And you want to borrow 5,000. So what this smart vault does is, okay, we've got 10,000 locked in here of Bitcoin. It'll allow you to borrow up to 90% of that value and mint fresh stable coins out this side. So now you've got these stable coins that are like, pegged to the US dollar. And you can go and like trade it for US dollar, someone that wants to buy them to maybe pay back their debt or something. You have to trade it for actual dollar and buy a car, or someone will take your stable coins for their car maybe as well. It also happens. Right. But what you've done is you've borrowed that money at 0%. You've still got the collateral there. Bitcoin's still going up. And if you're now got liquidity. So you've borrowed money from yourself. And what's giving value to this stable coin? Well, the stuff that's locked in there, because there's more value locked in that smart contract. And for those that don't know what a smart contract is, it's just a computer program. What makes it different from a computer program? Why is a smart contract a smart contract and computer program a computer program? Is that a smart contract runs on thousands of computers at once. So, because if it was just a computer program running on my laptop, I don't know if my laptop's got a virus or it's been hacked or something. But I know that I'm pretty certain it's very, very unlikely that thousands of computers have got the same virus and will give an output that's wrong. So 51% of the network have to have the same calculation. Basically, the same computer program runs, and 51% of them goes, okay, and then we have to say that's truth because 51% of the network said it was true. And so anyway, so you lock up these assets, print yourself stablecoins at 0%. There's no time limit to pay it back. You just have to pay it back. And most people, you'll want to pay it back because there's more value locked up in that smart contract than you borrowed from yourself. Right. So you just start
hold on, let me just understand. So you get these stable coins, you lock your Bitcoin in the vault, get these stable coins. Now you're going to use these stable coins to go, let's say, buy a car. First of all, I have to convert those stable coins, I guess, into fiat unless the seller of the car is willing to accept stable coin. So I find a buyer for them. Where would I typically find a buyer for stable coin?
You can find usually on like Uniswap or even Kraken, and Kraken have DAI, which is DAI. That's a stable coin in USD. There's
and so these are like exchanges.
Yeah. So these are exchanges. Yeah. So there's decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges.
Right.
Whatever.
And so I would have this stable coin, and it would be would the, I guess, the buyer know? I'm assuming there's different types of stable coin out there, right? So they would want to know that it's pegged to the Bitcoin in this vault, I assume. Yeah. And so what? Yeah. So what do they do with the stable coin then? Do they when they use it, does it somehow resolve by releasing some Bitcoin from the vault to them, or?
No, they can't do anything. They just have a stable coin, so they can either buy, it's worth $1, so they can do whatever they want. And now this is the key of how things stay stable, is that let's say you've got a debt to yourself of $5,000, right? And you've got 10 grand locked up. Imagine if the stablecoin now drops 10% in value suddenly, because something's, the whole market's crapping its pants, and the stablecoin drops 10%. All of a sudden, I can pay off my own debt at 10% discount. So what do? I go onto the exchanges and try to buy back this stablecoin. What does that buying pressure does? More demand means higher prices. So the demand of me buying that stablecoin off to pay my debt back off cheaper lifts the price again back to a 1-to-1. And so, yeah, and same goes for if it goes above, which is rarer. If one S dollar for standard dollar goes above $1, then oh my God, I'm going to borrow from myself a whole bunch and sell it on the market and make a profit. And that supply will drop the stable coin back down to 1. So this is a constant sort of swing.
Okay.
And that,
let's say I lock $10,000 worth of Bitcoin in this vault. I get the stable coin. I do my thing with it. How do I get that Bitcoin back out of the vault eventually? Or does it have to stay in there as long as the stable coin's circulating?
Yeah. You can slowly pay down your debt again. And the more you pay it down, the more you can take out. So you just have to stay at it has to be 110% over collateralized. So rather than fractional reserve, we're over reserved always. And provably, the whole system has more value locked up than currency floating around. And what the standard does that's even cooler is that if we're in a bear market, because there's a side of this is really hard, is let's say you've taken out a loan, you've bought yourself a car, I don't know, you've lost your job, you can't afford to pay back your debt, but there's no time limit and it's 0% interest, right? So you're all good. You can wait it out. But you've got this liquidity sitting in there. Now, let's say a bear market hits and the Bitcoin's going down. And what happens is if it reaches the collateralization threshold, which means that 110%, it cannot fall below, it's mathematically cannot. What happens is that vault gets liquidated. And there's a whole lot of people owning the governance token that have the ability to buy those assets at 10% discount. Gotcha. So they then get the S euro or the S dollar and pay back the vault and get that liquidity at a discount. So that means that they burn the outstanding stable coins to make sure that there's always 110% more value at least locked up in the system.
Right. Oh,
and so what we have built now is a mechanism where you can have provably over reserve. You don't have to trust anybody because no one can get access to your vault. No one can speculate with those locked assets. All that can happen is they fall below collateral. And now we don't want people to fall below collateral. So we've built mechanisms where you can trade the collateral that's in it. Say if you've got Bitcoin and Bitcoin's just shitting the bed. It's just the market's just going down and down and everything's horrible. What you can do is trade that collateral for a tokenized gold, if you'd like. And that tokenized gold then is still a rare asset, but it's not dropping like 10% a day or whatever. Gold's fairly stable compared to Bitcoin. Right. So now you've converted it into something more stable, but it's still a rare asset. It's not, some crap coin. So that's one way that you can secure it. The other way is you can say, man, I've got this collateralized debt position and I've lost my job. I can't pay back. There's all this value sitting there. I'm going to sell it and each vault comes with an NFT. It's like, it's not an art piece, but it's a key. An NFT can also be a key.
Right.
And what you can do is you can actually sell the key to your vault. So I could say, look, there's all this stuff there. Do you want my debt and the collateral? So I can now sell you that. And now I have some liquidity back. Yeah, I'm happy. You have the vault. You can now pay off the vault and get the liquidity out that's locked in there. So there's these sorts of things that are really, really cool that we're building. And And I just think it's exciting because for the first time in history, we have the ability to have finance and people being their own bank and lending themselves liquidity. Also helps with things like debt cycles where people cannot afford to, like these poverty cycles, they can't afford to live and save. So
Right.
whereas now what they can do is they can say, okay, I've earned my money, I'm going to put it into a smart vault and I'm going to borrow the liquidity I need for rent and food. Now, if I get liquidated, I lose 10%, but I was going to have to sell that anyway. So it's a good speculation to say, at least I get to save something. And
Right.
it's self-sovereign, you know, that's the key to all us libertarians is like self-sovereignty. And I know it's
Absolutely.
like crazy crypto space stuff, but adding that tokenized gold and having the ability to sort of make gold a more of a futuristic endeavor and
Right.
add some of this functionality, you know, have a good gain of function for gold is I think really, really cool.
Right. And you know, what I love about this is, like you say, it's self-sovereign. And I love the thing that you're doing is you're solving, you're seeing a demand in the market, right? Like the demand is we've seen how corrupt regular banks are. We've seen how kind of Wild West and sketchy and, you know, a lot of these crypto exchanges and, you know, MT Gox and what was the one with Sam Bankman where they're doing
FTX.
meth and blow? Yeah, the FTX scandal. There's all this stuff, right? And what you're doing is creating security. You're like, here's the actual physical gold. Here's the actual protocol. You know, it's 100%, 110% reserve banking, and
provable.
You know, it's provable, and so you are meeting this market demand better than any government regulation could. You know, a statist might say, look at what's happened to FTX and MT Gox, and we need more government here. We need some regulation in this space. Well, no, because we got guys like Joshua and his team creating the standard.io, Vaultoro.com, and meeting this demand. And, you know, if there's any chinks in their armor, there's going to be other competitors willing to take your dollars and provide the value that you're looking for out there in the banking and crypto space.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we really are. We're living through a time that's extraordinary now, Tim, and I don't need to tell you that. You know, we're living in a time where really we're bucking up against the old guard of the constant war dogs, and we had, you know, the whole scam over the last 3 years from big pharma as well, where they just made off with billions. Just and we saw the control of narrative through that time, and we saw the control of narrative. We saw an industry make an absolute killing, literally and figuratively, through those times. And now we have then the industrial military complex play their old game, going, wow, these guys are making a lot of money. It's time to start a war. So now we've got Europe, basically that war stimulating massive weaponry defense spending on every country that hasn't for years. I mean, Germany is basically a boom dock, sorry, of hardware. Like the trucks don't work. It's a terribly financed army and a defense force. And now after this, wow, they're stepping up their spending, and every NATO country is. So we've got that. Then we've got the rise of AI, which is an absolutely mammoth. I think it's the biggest threat that we have right now, far beyond what people can actually comprehend. And we're just sort of walking through this without any really understanding or comprehension of, well, first of all, the exponentiality and the speed, but B, the dangers. And on top of that, you have the CBDCs coming, the mass control grids. And what part of AI is the compression of data is so grand. Like some of these large language models that have so much data in them, you can fit on your local computer now. So the compression of the internet, it's a sort of a compression mechanism. So we have all these threats to human liberty and freedom. So it's really, really important that we don't get scared and we challenge each one of these one at a time. And the big one is money, because these CBDCs are so dangerous. And you touched on it right in your intro there, Tim, about the ultimate control that CBDCs have. And many people don't really grasp why that is. Well, we already got digital cash. It's my credit card. It's digital, but it's very, very different. These CBDCs are very, very different. And yeah, we can talk about that if you want. But yeah.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it. You know, my listeners will be maybe vaguely familiar with CBDC. All they know is a lot of I've seen this in a lot of kind of let's call it patriot and freedom lover spaces that stay away from digital currencies, right? And they'll lump them all together. They'll lump CBDC in with Bitcoin and everything else. What should we be concerned about with the CBDCs?
So let's break it down a little bit into what it is, right? Right now, if I'm an American and I'm banking with, I don't know, some bank, and I want to set, I come to your store and I buy something, what happens is that my bank says, my bank doesn't send you that money right away. It puts up a little IOU to your bank, and it goes in a whole pool of IOUs for that day. So my bank might, through 10,000 transactions, might say, okay, we owe your bank $1.3 million. Let's make a round numbers. We owe your bank $1 million. And your bank might also have customers, a whole bunch of customers that sent money to my bank that day. Maybe they make up 100K $100,000. So there's $1 million owing your bank from my side and 100,000 owing my bank. So what happens at the end of the day, the central bank gets that data and just makes one transaction, says, okay, this bank just has to send 900K to this bank and it's even. So it's one transaction settles the whole lot, and it's quite good. Now, what's happened right there? Well, the central bank has no idea what transactions make up that $1 million worth of transactions, or what made up the 100K on the other side. They don't know. All they know is, right, this bank owes this bank this much, and one transaction, everything's settled, the difference, you know. Now, what CBDCs do is they get rid of all that. Now, first of all, before we go there, I want to say that right now, there's some sort of legal hurdles. Yes, the government can come, subpoena the bank, and get the full records of what you spent and what you did. But there are checks and balances in place to do that. Yes, some will say that it's way too loose and whatever, but at least it's there. CBDCs will get rid of all of that, and every single transaction goes to the central bank, and the central bank then forwards it onto your bank. So it'll just go, which is actually the central bank. You know, everything just goes to the central bank. And so the government can quite easily say, or the central bank can say, right, we have a massive obesity epidemic, and we can't have you buying that chocolate bar, Tim. You've already bought 3 this month. No. As stupid as that sounds, that's just the stupid shit.
Well, it does sound stupid, but I mean, it doesn't sound as far-fetched to me anymore. I was talking with someone the other day who had to do a bunch of business flights back and forth between Vancouver and Calgary, and she couldn't purchase an airline ticket with her credit card because she had exceeded her carbon limit or something like that. What? She had apparently, I think, she didn't realize it, but she signed up for like it sounds nice, right? When you sign up for it, it's like a carbon conscious credit card or something like that. You know, help fight climate change with it. Oh, that sounds nice. Well, until you can't buy a ticket with it because you've exceeded your allotment, right? But that, you know, presumably she voluntarily signed up for that program, but just wasn't paying attention. So, you know, buyer beware on that one. But that's, you know, we hand that power over to the central bank. It doesn't seem like a big step to go that next step further, right?
It's absolutely not a big step. Now, we've just been through 3 years of a nightmare where they cordoned off certain shops and said, you're allowed to buy this, but not this. They would like tie a little fence around, I don't know, the Frisbees at the shop, but not the drinks or the Coke, you know. That's,
right.
That's important to.
Yeah.
So during that time, we've seen how much governments wanted to control the flow of money, the spending, what was allowed.
Oh, yeah. Well, just think about what they could have done with a CBDC, right? They could have said, well, only essential items. Well, who do you want deciding what's essential to you? We saw exactly what happened when, you know, when the government kind of clunkily and clumsily tried to regulate that. Now they're going to be able to precisely regulate it, and the pain and impact you're going to feel is going to be much greater.
Yeah, and it's not going to be on a blockchain. The reason why central banks haven't done this so far is because it's very, very dangerous to have one big honeypot at the central bank, which is the entire economy of the US or Germany or whatever, because some sort of hacker that, you know, is either another country or just a private clown wants to take it down. If they got into that database and screwed everything up, you could literally destroy an entire economy. So why it's taken this long to do that is because what the blockchain solved is the ability to do these hash routes where you're hashing the last block with the next one and so on and so forth. Anyway, it's a security protocol, but it's not going to be decentralized. What you'll have is 3 servers standing right next to each other, and they all take turn doing these mathematical hash algorithms to secure it. And so you'll have to like break into all 3 at once, and maybe they'll be sitting in different server rooms or whatever. But that's how they've secured this, because Satoshi Nakamoto solved that sort of consensus and security risk. So they'll just take the best of that, crush it down into a centralized sort of thing and go from there. But it's very dangerous. Not only that, I mean, this is programmable money. So they can say, well, you're not allowed to spend money outside of 15 Ks of your home. You've walked, 16 Ks, blip, 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 it doesn't work. That's a shame. Why did I, and they'll get everyone to jump into the CBDC by saying, if you do it now, we'll give you an airdrop of a free $100 stimmy check.
Right.
Your CBDC account, and everyone will do it.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, you'll see why everyone will do it, right? Because they've stolen all our buying power. We're living right on the edge, and we want that little stimmy, right? If we don't take it, someone else is going to take it, and I mean, our buying power will go to them, right? Instead. So yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know if you saw what was going on in Calgary or Canada here last year with the trucker convoy and people who donated even small amounts to it, having their bank accounts frozen, different things like that. I know a friend of mine donated $1,000, and he had to go through a big rigmarole to get access to his bank account again. Well, I mean, CBDC makes it real easy for a government to clamp down on that, right? You've got, our government here in Canada issued the Emergency Measures Act, which is the old War Measures Act. It's supposed to be used in a time of war when the country's being attacked to lock things down and give the government more power. Well, they implemented that act for this trucker convoy because of all the horn honking and splash pools that they had for their kids. Yeah. And so you implement the kind of draconian powers that we've saw exercise and make it that much easier for government to just absolutely destroy the enemies of the regime, the people. And you could see how nefarious this technology could be.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got the son of Castro there. It's no big surprise really that one thing that's really important is that people have these conversations around the dinner table about these CBDCs. That because it comes back down to the family. The family is where the power sits. The family is where where the state is scared of the family. That's why they've tried to break it all apart with all this, you know, extreme feminism and extreme destruction of men's rights as well, and but also just the constant sort of removing the children into the state schools, so that you know, all of this stuff are little steps towards the destruction of the family. And really in the 1940s, when we were going off the gold standard, in the 30s, 40s, leading up to that removal of any gold standard, people would talk about this stuff. They would talk about it around the family dinner table, and they would decide who they're going to vote for and how they're going to vote around those conversations. Well, those conversations hardly happen anymore. Bitcoin brought a little bit of a renaissance in this field because people started understanding money again. They're like, so as soon as there's a new use case, like some big tech company now accepts Bitcoin, everyone celebrates. That's why the US dollar needs oil settlement, because that's a use case for the US dollar. So they go around trying to, you know, so these sorts of cognitive processes happen because of these inventions. But we need to really discuss CBDCs, because right now, these governments, these central banks, they're just going forward saying, it's just a little upgrade. It's instant settlement. It's fantastic. You'll love it. And no discussions being had. And it's really, right. You know, when I think about our grandparents who might have fought and died in wars before, what did they die for? Did they die so we could all be tracked and traced and followed and our money controlled to the nth degree down to the cent? No, they died for freedom. And it would be a shame just to let that go without even a conversation at the family dinner table.
Yeah, that's a fantastic, I love that idea. Bring it back to the family, talk to your family about it. And you're right. I mean, the government has, the state and the family don't mix, put it that way. And so the state is always going to be interested in destroying the family, whether it's, you know, the right or the left in there. I mean, you know, yeah, it's very clear how the left has destroyed the family, but the right kind of tees it up for them. I mean, the right's insistent that the state be involved in marriage, that because we can't have the gays marry, right? I mean, that would destroy the institution of the family. So the government has to tightly regulate marriage, issue the marriage certificates to the people that we say should get them. And now the left says, yeah, we agree with you. The state ought to be heavily involved in marriage, you know, for different reasons. We need to protect the women. And so now we're going to create no fault divorce and make it so that you can unilaterally break the marriage contract and not only not pay a penalty, you can get paid for life, basically, from the non-custodial parent that you left, right? Which is almost always the man. So, you know, and you could go down the list, like public school, you know, the taxation. Of course, you raise the tax level to a point where both parents have to be working, get the kids into government school. I mean, both the left and the right see that as an opportunity to indoctrinate your kid, right? Yep. It's just that, and so it's no coincidence that all the arguments we're seeing online right now about drag queen story hour and these books in schools, they're all conservative versus liberal about what should be banned and what should be done in school. What should our kids be exposed to? But no one on either side of that argument is talking about let's get rid of public schools because they're destroying our family and they're destroying the fabric of our nation. That is never discussed. And so, yeah, I mean, we need to, you know, as people, as individuals, as fathers and mothers, we need to be actively fighting this stuff by loving and connecting with our family. And we do that through these kinds of conversations. And, you know, all the forces are trying to split us apart. We need to be actively working to hold the family together. Okay, Joshua, let's say I've got $10,000 sitting in my you know, fractional reserve bank. I'm nervous about how much buying power it's losing every single day because of inflation. I want to protect that. And you've sold me the standard.io, this DeFi idea of becoming my own personal bank appeals to me. How do I get started in this?
Look, I mean, you know, if you're just starting out in crypto, I would say, look, just watch and learn with us. It's a very risky thing that we're building. It's not something for the faint-hearted. You know, it really is. It's a big experiment. If you've got cash to burn and you're interested in contributing to the future of decentralized finance, then for all, you know, means, have a look and see what suits you. But if you're just starting out, just get some money out of the bank. You know, don't hold it in that. Hold it in precious metals, land, even forestry, pork bellies, like just something that's real and tangible, because everything's teetering right now. But yeah, I mean, with the standard, I'm just so excited. We just had a meeting tonight with the team. The team's all over the world. And just testing out the smart contracts. It's like we haven't got an interface yet, so it's all very sort of nerdy, but it's working. And I'm just that excited. So if you want to come and check us out, just go to thestandard.io, join the Discord or the Telegram, and if you've got some skills you want to help out, just let us know. And you know, we're a ragtag bunch of anarchist types that want to you know, build freedom loving, capital loving mechanisms to secure the future of or at least have an exit door to the CBDCs, because they're coming whatever we do. And I don't want to shut them down. I just don't want to have anything to do with them, but I want to build this exit door where we can say, look, you have your weird CBDC control freak slave bondage money. I've got this stuff over here, and I'm going to use it, you know. And
well, I love that. You know, I spent a lot of years shaking my fist at the system, trying to like fight against it through political activism and, you know, even politics. I don't know if you'd call what I did politics. It was maybe political theater, using political theater to try to get a message out. But to me, it's all been about kind of persuading people to embrace liberty and reject statism. And because to me, the state is foisted up by what's in the brains of the people around me, right? By the memes they have in their brains, the cultural ideas, the assumptions they have. And if I could just tap into that and get them to see, then the scales will fall from their eyes and maybe the state will wither or die that way. But I think much more realistically, what I've learned is, you know, people are looking, they're afraid and they're looking for solutions, and they're either going to go to the government or they're going to go to the standard.io or something like that. And so building something that actually works, that helps people address their fear and provides a solution for them, probably seems like a better path forward. I mean, we need all different angles on this, but more and more I'm interested in building solutions. And, you know, the tagline of this podcast is how to live free in an unfree world. And Joshua, thanks for coming on and giving us some insight into how to do just that. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tim, Matt, it's just an absolute pleasure. And, you know, I think, like I said, talking about this stuff is what's really important. Education is really how we get, and not schooling, you know, education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joshua. And go check out thestandard.io and Vaultoro.com. Links will be in the show notes. Thanks again, Joshua.
Cheers.